Sarah Miller adjusted her stance, balancing her 8-month pregnant belly while assessing the Buckingham Palace scene with military precision. After 3 combat deployments, she never expected her greatest battle would be against a martial arts champion mocking both the royal guard and her pregnancy. At 45, Sarah Miller stood out among the tourists gathered for the changing of the guard ceremony. Her golden brown hair pulled back in a neat bun, she wore a navy maternity dress that accommodated her 8-month pregnant frame. Despite her condition, she maintained a straight posture and alert gaze developed during 15 years in Army Special Forces. "You should sit down, Sarah," suggested her friend Laura, eyeing Sarah's pregnancy with concern. "We can find you a bench." "I'm pregnant, not invalid," Sarah replied with a smile, instinctively placing her protective hand on her belly. The small veteran's pin on her collar caught the morning light, an understated reminder of her past service. Nearby, Marcus Bennett commanded attention. Tall and muscular in a designer tracksuit with elite combat training emblazoned across the back, the 40-year-old martial arts instructor addressed his 4 students with theatrical confidence. "This is what Britain calls security?" Marcus scoffed, gesturing toward the motionless royal guard, William, whose scarlet tunic and bearskin cap stood in stark contrast to Marcus's modern athletic wear. "In my world, a fighter who stands still is just asking to get knocked down." His students nodded in agreement, forming a protective semicircle around their leader. Colonel Thompson, a distinguished veteran in civilian clothes with a subtle service pin on his lapel, observed the scene with growing concern. His weathered face registered recognition of potential trouble as Marcus's voice grew louder and his gestures more animated. Sarah shifted her weight, one hand supporting her lower back, her eyes narrowing as she assessed the escalating situation with battlefield-honed instinct. "Look at that stance," Marcus announced loudly, circling the guard. "Completely vulnerable. No center of gravity, no defensive posture." He rolled his shoulders, muscles rippling beneath his custom tracksuit. All that ceremonial garbage would get him destroyed in a real fight. Sarah frowned, recognizing the unmistakable energy of contained aggression. Her hand moved protectively across her rounded belly as she positioned herself to watch more carefully, military training automatically calculating escape routes should the situation deteriorate. "Let me show you what a real fighter looks like," Marcus declared, stepping closer to the guard. William's eyes remained fixed forward, his disciplined stillness a stark contrast to Marcus's fluid movement. "See, a real fighter is always ready, always moving, always aware." He demonstrated a defensive stance, his trained body shifting with practiced precision. Marcus began circling the guard, analyzing his form with a critical eye. "Look at this poor guy. They've trained all the fighting instinct out of him." Tourists gathered, forming an impromptu semicircle. Some looked uncomfortable, others curious. A family quickly ushered their children away, the parents exchanging disapproving glances. Sarah edged closer, her pregnant form moving with deliberate care. She caught Colonel Thompson's eye briefly, a silent recognition passing between veterans. "You know what we're looking at here?" Marcus gestured to the guard. "The difference between ceremony and combat. These guys are performing, not fighting." He executed a series of quick jabs that stopped just short of William's face. "Ladies and gentlemen," Marcus called out, assuming the role of an impromptu ringside announcer, "what you're witnessing is a fundamental difference between British tradition and actual combat effectiveness." Marcus's students positioned themselves strategically around the guard, forming a demonstration circle. Their matching jackets created a visual barrier separating William from the crowd. "This is Jake." Marcus gestured to the tallest of his entourage, 3-time kickboxing champion. "And David here." He nodded toward a compact, muscular man, former MMA title holder. "We train fighters who in actual combat sports, not ceremonial soldiers who in costume contests." Sarah stepped forward, her military bearing evident despite her pregnancy. "That's enough," she said, her voice carrying the quiet authority of command. "You're being disrespectful." Marcus turned, taking in Sarah's pregnant form with a dismissive glance. Well, are you the guard's bodyguard?" His students laughed. "No offense, ma'am, but in your condition, you should probably find a nice bench." He emphasized condition with exaggerated concern. "These guards deserve your respect," Sarah replied evenly. "Respect is earned in the ring, not by standing still in a funny hat," Marcus retorted, then turned his audience. "Look at this. Britain's finest can't even defend themselves. And their only champion is an expectant mother." He emphasized the last words with mock deference. Colonel Thompson began making his way through the crowd, but Marcus's students closed ranks, blocking his approach. "Let the demonstration finish, old man," one of them said, placing a hand on Thompson's chest. "That guard is not what you think," Thompson warned quietly. "Your friend is making a serious mistake." Meanwhile, Marcus had begun a meticulous warm-up routine. "The most dangerous delusion in combat sports," he lectured, rotating his wrists, "is believing that tradition equals effectiveness. These guards stand here looking impressive, but they've sacrificed practical skills for ceremony." Sarah's expression hardened as she recognized the escalating threat. Her hand instinctively moved to her belly, but her stance subtly shifted to what military personnel would recognize as ready position. Feet planted solidly, weight balanced despite her pregnancy. "In a real combat situation," Marcus announced, "maintaining situational awareness is critical. This guard has surrendered his awareness to ceremony." He began a complex approach sequence. "His training has made him vulnerable, not strong." The crowd fell silent, sensing a line was about to be crossed. Several people backed away while others seemed frozen in place. "A defender who won't adapt," Marcus declared, his movements accelerating, "who can't respond to changing conditions, who remains rigidly committed to outdated protocols." He launched into a blindingly fast combination. The final move, a spinning heel kick, aimed directly at William's face. The impact was audible, a sharp crack that cut through the morning air. William's bearskin cap flew off in a dramatic arc against the London sky. A collective gasp rose from the crowd, followed by absolute silence. The bearskin cap landed on the courtyard stones with a muffled thud. Marcus recovered his balance with practiced efficiency, a triumphant smile beginning to form on his lips. "And that," he announced to the stunned audience, "is why." His words died as William hadn't fallen or staggered. His head had snapped sideways with the impact, but his body absorbed the blow. A thin line of blood traced down from his temple, but his eyes now locked directly onto Marcus's with cold, focused clarity. For a heartbeat, nothing moved. The crowd held its collective breath. Then William moved, not with a clumsy response of a ceremonial figure, but with the precise, economical motion of a predator. His ceremonial rifle clattered to the stones as he closed the distance with Marcus. The guard's first strike was textbook perfect, not showy or dramatic, just a combat move delivered with military precision. Marcus blocked instinctively, but the impact sent him staggering backward. William didn't speak or posture. He moved with focused intensity, systematically dismantling the martial artist's defenses. Marcus attempted a counterattack, launching a kick that had won him tournaments. William caught his leg midair and took him to the ground with one decisive motion. The impact knocked the wind from Marcus's lungs as the guard maintained position, one knee precisely placed on his sternum. Enough pressure to immobilize but not injure. "Stay down." William spoke for the first time, his voice carrying quiet authority. "This ends now." "Enough." The command cut through the chaos, carrying the unmistakable tone of military authority. The crowd parted as Sarah stepped forward, her pregnant form somehow imposing rather than vulnerable. "Release him, guard," she ordered William, who instantly recognized the chain of command in her voice. He maintained his hold but looked up attentively. "Ma'am, he assaulted a serving member of His Majesty's forces." William responded formally. "I'm aware, soldier." Sarah's posture had transformed completely. Gone was any hint of pregnancy discomfort, replaced by the unmistakable bearing of a senior officer. "I'll take responsibility from here." Marcus, still pinned, looked up in confusion. "What the hell? You can't." "That's ma'am to you," Sarah corrected sharply. She turned to address the stunned crowd. "What you just witnessed is not a contest between tradition and effectiveness, but between showmanship and discipline." Colonel Thompson finally broke through, nodding respectfully to Sarah. Major Miller. It's been some time. Colonel, she acknowledged with a crisp nod. You know her? Marcus asked incredulously from his position on the ground. Major Sarah Miller, Thompson announced. 15 years with Army Special Forces. 3 combat deployments. 2 Distinguished Service Medals. He paused, allowing the information to sink in. Before becoming a mother, the Major here trained special operators in advanced close-quarters combat techniques. The crowd murmured in surprise, their gazes shifting between Sarah's pregnant form and her now evident military bearing. The ceremonial duties you've been mocking, Sarah addressed Marcus directly, her hand resting protectively on her belly, require the highest levels of discipline from soldiers who've already proven themselves in actual combat, just as my current state doesn't erase my capabilities or service. Palace security personnel approached rapidly across the courtyard. William, still maintaining his hold on Marcus, looked to Sarah. Your orders, ma'am. For the first time, a hint of a smile touched Sarah's lips. I believe you can release him, guard. I doubt he'll be causing any more trouble today. As William released his hold and stood at attention, Marcus scrambled to his feet, his previous confidence shattered. Sarah remained perfectly poised. One hand supported her lower back in the only acknowledgement of her pregnancy. Your performance was impressive, Sarah conceded to Marcus, her tone professional rather than antagonistic. But you confused showmanship with combat effectiveness, just as you mistook my pregnancy for weakness. Marcus straightened his rumpled tracksuit, struggling to regain his composure. I didn't know. That's precisely the point, Sarah interrupted. In both cases, you judge based on appearances rather than reality. She gestured toward William, who had retrieved his bearskin cap and resumed his position. These guards stand motionless not because they can't move, but because they've mastered the discipline not to move until necessary. Colonel Thompson nodded in agreement. The same discipline that allows them to stand for hours without breaking formation is the discipline that keeps them calm under enemy fire. And as for me, Sarah continued, briefly touching her veteran's pin, this pregnancy doesn't diminish what I've learned or what I can do. It adds to who I am. Her voice softened slightly. I protect this child with the same dedication I once protected my unit. The security officer approached, addressing Colonel Thompson. Sir, we're prepared to process charges against this individual for assaulting Guard William. Before Thompson could respond, Sarah stepped forward. I'd like a moment with both men first, if possible. The officer, noting her evident authority despite her civilian status, nodded respectfully. Of course, ma'am. Marcus's students had backed away, their previous bravado entirely vanished. One of them whispered, Special Forces? With a baby? Women in combat units have been proving themselves for decades, Sarah replied, having overheard. Just as this child doesn't make me less of a soldier, my military background doesn't make me less a mother. Both require strength, both require sacrifice, and both deserve respect. Marcus, finally finding his voice, looked directly at William. I apologize for my behavior and my assumptions. William maintained a ceremonial position, but gave a single, precise nod of acknowledgement. Sarah's expression remained composed but softened slightly. Recognition of error is a first step toward correction. That's something both military training and parenthood teach very effectively. Later that afternoon, as the crowd had dispersed and palace operations returned to normal, Sarah sat on a bench near the guard post, finally allowed herself the rest her body needed. William, relieved from his duty, approached in his standard uniform rather than ceremonial dress. Major, he acknowledged with respect, the small bandage at his temple the only evidence of the earlier confrontation. At ease, guard, she smiled, making room on the bench. And it's just Sarah now. My service days are behind me. Never really behind us, though, is it, ma'am? William observed quietly. Sarah rested her hand on her belly as the baby kicked. No, I suppose not. Just transformed into something new. She looked thoughtfully at the palace. The discipline stays with you, becomes part of who you are. Your intervention prevented a much worse outcome for that civilian, William noted. Some battles are won with force, Sarah replied. others with authority. Knowing which to use comes with experience. She smiled slightly. Something I hope to teach this little one someday. As William returned to his duties and Sarah prepared to leave, Colonel Thompson approached, offering his arm as support. Still commanding Room's major, he observed with approval. Sarah accepted his assistance with a graceful nod. Some skills you never lose, Colonel. And some lessons need repeating. She gazed back at the guard standing at attention, their stillness now representing something fundamentally different to the tourists who approached with newfound respect after witnessing the day's events. "Appearances deceive," Sarah said quietly. "Whether it's a ceremonial uniform or a pregnant belly, true strength lies beneath the surface, in the discipline, training, and determination that shape who we are." If this story resonated with you, please share your thoughts in the comments below. We respect every experience shared here. Have you witnessed pregnant veterans facing similar challenges, or experienced discrimination based on service or pregnancy? Your experiences matter, and every comment helps raise awareness about the unique struggles and incredible strength of pregnant veterans. Subscribe for more powerful stories that honor those who serve both country and family.